It was one of those mornings when everything seems to fall into place. An ordinary morning, an ordinary day. I had time to have breakfast, prepare a cup of coffee, and was already thinking about my business. If only I knew that this day would be the end of my peaceful world. The woman I had loved for more than 20 years suddenly told me something I hadn't expected. And she stood in front of me, her voice calm, almost cold, and her eyes lacked the sparkle of emotion that usually filled them. I think I even heard something like this: "I can't be with you anymore." It was like a blow, and I felt my heart stop for a moment, and a foggy thought started to swirl in my head. This is a joke. This is just a bad joke. But no, it was not a joke. She just looked at me with an expression, as if she had decided that her decision was already final. My thoughts became confused, and suddenly I felt something dark begin to rise inside me, despair. Yeah, I felt as if I had been pushed into the abyss. I tried to ask her why, but her answers were cold and dry. She didn't want to be with me anymore. That was it. No explanations, no questions, just her decision. And all the years we spent together didn't matter. Everything we had created together, our home, our history, our dreams, disappeared as if they had never existed. It was a bitter reality. How a loss that left me without strength, without protection. How would I go on living? How do I accept this reality? What she said next was a real blow to me. It turns out that she had been thinking about this for a long time. And she was not even alone in these thoughts. She had been with someone else, and for a long time. I felt as if I had lost not only my wife, but also a part of myself. She had taken not only her love, but also my place in the world. And of all my peace of mind, everything I considered important was gone. Her words pierced me like a cold wind. "I took everything," was what she said, and I could not comprehend it. I never thought I would feel such a betrayal. What was it? Of a how did it happen that our story just ended, like a book you don't want to read anymore? I was in shock, but deep down I refused to believe. It seemed to me that I simply did not understand her words, or that this was a temporary problem that was about to disappear. I began to ask her, to insist, to explain that everything could be fixed. But her gaze remained cold, her answer was unequivocal. "I've decided it's over." And that was it. She took everything. My efforts to keep her in my life seemed hopeless. I heard the door close behind her, and even as it was closing, I couldn't believe for a long time that she was gone. She left me, and it left me with a vacuum that could not be filled. How did this happen? Left alone, I sat in the empty house, realizing that everything had changed. Even the air was different, heavy and unfriendly. I couldn't understand what had happened, why everything had come to an end. I sat on the couch and started to remember all the moments we had. She was a part of my life, and now I was without her. Without her voice, without her laugh, without her look. And that seemed to be the most painful thing, the realization that this person who had been a part of my life was no longer a part of it. My thoughts were confused, and all the questions remained unanswered. Why? What happened? How is this possible? Is it worth trying to fix the situation? All that was left was emptiness. Time seemed to stand still, and I couldn't figure out how I was supposed to move on. But I knew one thing for sure: I could not leave it like this. I couldn't just accept what had happened. But the answers I was waiting for did not appear. Would I be able to find the strength to accept it? Will I be able to get up after such a blow? And most importantly, would I still have a chance to find peace after such a betrayal? In the meantime, I was left alone, with a bitter feeling in my heart, and no ordinary day seemed so ordinary. I felt broken, but I guess the real journey was just beginning. And after she left, I was left with an emptiness that was getting heavier and heavier. The first days were hazy. Time seemed to have stopped, but I felt fear at every step. It wasn't just the fear of loss. It was the fear of being left behind with no way to return. My consciousness was digesting what had happened like a whirlwind. No matter how hard I tried to look for reasons or excuses, nothing helped. And I was just left with this emptiness and fear. And it was huge, this fear. It seemed to fill the entire space around me. I realized that what I feared the most had become a reality. I was alone. Oh, and not just alone, but with the feeling that no one else wanted to be around me. Every day this feeling grew stronger. It was not just an emotional punishment, it was a real empty darkness that was consuming me. And my thoughts were riddled with doubts. Ideas that had seemed normal before now seemed alien. I began to ask myself, what am I now without her? Who am I now that everything I wanted just fell apart? I looked at the empty table where we used to have dinner, at the empty chair where she used to sit with a cup of tea. All these little things suddenly became signs of loss. Everything I had disappeared in an instant. Every day started with a heavy breath, every night with a feeling that I just didn't know what to do next. All my plans, my dreams, my belief that things would change, just disappeared. My hand desperately reached for the phone, hoping to see her name on the screen, but every time I dialed her number, I remembered that I could no longer receive a call from her. What scared me the most was not just her leaving, it was the pain of becoming a stranger even to myself. All these years I had built my life around her, and now I couldn't figure out who I really was when she left. I felt lost, like a child left in a strange city without parents. I didn't know how to fill this empty space in my heart. All sounds, smells, and things reminded me of her. I tried to fill the silence with TV and music, but it only made me feel that something was wrong. I felt that something terrible was happening inside me, but I couldn't find the words to describe it. I tried to convince myself that it was all temporary. That time would heal everything. But in reality, fear remained a constant companion of my days. Every morning I woke up thinking, have I made a mistake? I began to rethink everything that happened. It was hard not to think that maybe I was the reason she left. If I could change something, turn back time, say, or do something differently. But in reality, I was beginning to realize that there are no, if only, in this world. If I could, I would try to overcome this fear. But what do you do when everything you were afraid of came true? And this feeling remained. The feeling that I had no control over my life, that it had gone in a different direction, and I had no ability to change it. My whole world was falling apart under the weight of questions that had no answers. At night, these thoughts became even stronger. Sometimes I thought I could hear her voice. Sometimes I saw her in the room again, coming in, sitting down and looking at me with a smile. But these were only memories, only images that had no place in reality. And these images filled my mind again and again, keeping me trapped. I began to wonder, what was it? Was it really the end? Or maybe I still have a chance to change something, but what will change if I don't even know where to start? My reality was left behind. It was gone, but its traces remained in everything. I felt broken, but at the same time I felt fear permeating every cell in my body. How can I move on when everything seems so alien? How can I get back to life when all the doors seem closed? I didn't know the answer. And that was the worst part, not knowing what to do next. Time went by, and every day I felt my life gradually begin to take on new shapes. At first, the changes seemed small and insignificant, almost imperceptible. I would wake up feeling empty, but every time I did, I would see something in my world start to change. At first, I didn't understand what these changes were, but over time it became obvious that I was adapting. No one gave me this chance, but I realized that I could no longer be the person I used to be. Everything I knew about myself no longer mattered. I had to create a new version of myself, and these were new rules of the game that I didn't quite understand yet. All these new decisions seemed scary, but at the same time they were the only right ones. I could no longer live in the shadow of the past. Life has shown me that nothing lasts forever, and even something that seemed unchangeable can break in a moment. But was I ready for that? To understand the new rules, I had to learn a new reality. And it was not easy. The first new challenge was my financial situation. Everything I was used to using was now a burden. I realized that it would be impossible to change my habits without proper support. Previously, everything revolved around joint plans, spending, and savings. Now I had to determine how to manage my finances on my own, and it was a real challenge. What could I do now? How much could I afford to spend when even the little things became so important? I was not ready for such a revolution, and even my stability looked like a bizarre illusion. I didn't know if I could handle it alone, but I felt I had no other choice. It was step by step. I started looking for new opportunities, acquaintances, additional income, new projects. And although it seemed like wasted time, I realized that every day brought me a new chance. Gradually, my perception of relationships began to change. I used to think that I knew how this world worked, that there were certain rules that could not be broken. But after my wife left, I realized that these rules are not always fair, that they often change and lead you into unfamiliar territory. My new life started with small habits. I started spending more time with people I didn't know before. I found new acquaintances who helped me change. It turns out that when you are open to new experiences, even other people's rules become understandable and even possible. I didn't feel comfortable in this new world at first, but eventually I realized that it was a chance for change. My attitude towards people changed the most. I began to question my own ability to assess situations and determine who was really important in my life. I became more cautious and open-minded at the same time. In of course, I still couldn't let go of thoughts about the past, but I also realized that without these new relationships, without new acquaintances, I wouldn't be able to move forward. I started paying attention to what was important in my life. The fear of being left without support was still with me, but not as much. And although the pain of the loss had not yet passed, I realized that it did not mean the end of everything. I started to build a new relationship with myself. I began to look for opportunities to change myself physically, emotionally, and morally. I took responsibility for finding my place in the new world. I realized one thing: my life would not be the same as before. And I could not leave everything unchanged. I started planning my future again, but with an eye to the new realities. And although the changes seemed difficult, I couldn't stop. They were not a choice, they were part of a new life. I didn't know where it would lead, but with each step I realized that it was part of the process. Despite all my efforts, some changes became so big that I could not foresee them. I tried to control the situation, but it was taking its own course. The uncertainty, fear, and new rules did not let go. I felt like life was putting me in new circumstances that I could not change. And although I had to face them, I still felt like I was in the game. Every day I woke up was another opportunity to change my life. But there were moments when it seemed like everything I was doing was just a fight with myself. No matter how hard I tried to accept the new realities, the inner pain of loss, betrayal, and abandonment did not leave me. I had already begun to accept that some things were beyond my control, but understanding and accepting them was much harder than I could have imagined. I realized that my life had not just changed, it had become a new stage where every action and decision contributed to my recovery. And although it seemed that I was back at the bottom, something inside me said that this was the moment to take a big step forward. At that time, I began to realize that it was important not only to let go of the past, but also to forgive myself. It always seems that forgiveness is for others. But the most important thing in life is to forgive yourself. I remembered how for years I had been shifting my problems onto others, instead of looking into the eyes and talking frankly with those around me. I hid in my thoughts, in my feelings. I thought that I did not deserve forgiveness, that my mistake was too big. But then I realized that this battle for my inner peaceful life was only my responsibility. I started looking for moments when I could finally forgive myself. It turned out that forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means accepting what happened and not letting it determine the rest of your life. Forgiveness became a kind of purification for me, where I was able to cleanse my soul of anger, regret, and accusations. I also realized that acceptance is not just a word. It is a deep process when you stop running from reality and start accepting it as it is. At first, it was difficult because I could not accept what I had lost. I couldn't accept that much of what I had planned and built made no sense anymore. But over time, I learned to see it as an opportunity for me. Every day was a struggle, but also a process of acceptance. I began to realize that my previous attempts to control everything around me were just an illusion. Now I began to appreciate the moments when I could just watch the world change around me. I no longer needed to be in control. I began to accept every moment, every day, with judgment and without disrespect for myself. It was a hard lesson to learn, but it was because of this that I began to feel more alive. And the moment I decided to forgive and accept, I realized that I had to let go. To let go of all negative thoughts, all experiences, all unanswered questions. This was a big and important step for me. And I let go of everything that no longer mattered and began to build my life on new foundations again. To let go is not just to be indifferent, it means to make your heart free, not to let the past determine your future. Letting go means finding the strength to start anew, even when all the signs around you indicate that it is impossible. I began to realize that my peace did not depend on whether I would have money, or who I would be with, or where I would live. My peace began to depend on how I accept this life. Life always seems to start again. No matter how hard you try to keep control, everything changes. But when I started to accept my mistake, when I dared to step into the unknown, I felt like there was more to this world than just a struggle to survive. I started rebuilding my life, and it was hard. Every day is a new start, every day is a new opportunity. But until that moment, I did not realize how important small changes can be, small steps that gradually bring you to a new level. Now, the unrecovery is not only physical, it is also emotional recovery. And I began to realize that I had everything to start again. My life no longer revolved only around what I had lost. I realized that I still had what was really important, my freedom, my dreams, my desires. And with each new step, I felt myself gradually reviving as small changes restored my faith in myself. Time became my ally, and every day lived with a new perspective gave me hope. And when you start to recover, you start to notice all the little things. Small victories become your achievements that you keep in your heart. I started with simple steps. I changed my routine, started paying more attention to myself. A year ago, I could not even imagine that I would be able to restore my inner balance, that I would be able to regain my confidence. What seems unchangeable begins to melt if you really believe in change. I tried to find my new purpose, my new goal in life. It was not easy, because fear remained my constant companion. But every small step gave me more strength and a sense of control over myself. And the recovery is not only about restoring physical health or finances. It is about profound changes in consciousness, perception of the world and yourself. I began to see new opportunities where there was only emptiness before. And although the changes were slow, I could see how each step was leading me to a new understanding of myself and what was really important in life. After many months of loneliness, I finally realized that I was not alone in my search. I met people who became important in my life, people who had similar experiences and understood me without words. They supported me. They were my reflection, a mirror in which I began to see the real me. These meetings have become a symbol for me that we are all trying to survive some difficult moments, and each of us has our own story. Only through such meetings do you begin to realize that recovery is impossible without the support of others, without sharing emotions and experiences. I began to feel human again, began to realize that true strength is not only being strong, but also being open to help. Although I was not yet ready to return to my old way of life, I realized that these meetings helped me find a new path. I began to appreciate what I have more and realized how important it is to change my attitude to what is happening around me. It became easier for me to look to the future. A fear, which once seemed to destroy me, no longer had such power over my life. With every new step I took, I saw new opportunities, new doors opening before me. The changes were not only external, they were happening inside me. I began to feel more confident. I began to see how my own beliefs were changing my path. Every day was now an opportunity to do something new, to build new relationships, to develop. And I became much stronger, and I felt it in every decision I made. Letting go of something that has become a part of your life is always difficult. It takes a long time before you can really get rid of something that held you captive. The past leaves you for a reason. It leaves scars, it leaves traces in your heart and in your mind. But can it ever go away? Is there really a moment when we can say to ourselves, I am no longer attached? To start a new life, you really need to get away from what has already happened. In my case, the past was a big part of who I am. It shaped my thoughts, my habits, even my fears. So letting go of all that was a real challenge. I was walking on a path that lacked firm faith, and every day was like a struggle with myself. It was like saying goodbye not to someone, but to myself. I couldn't understand why it was so hard for me to part with those memories that used to seem irreplaceable. Why can't I forget the face that used to be closest to me? And even now, years later, these faces continue to appear in my thoughts, sometimes in my dreams, sometimes during my everyday life. How difficult it is to leave behind everything that seemed to be part of your reality. It's not just a thing, it's a relationship, it's a promise, it's shared moments that will never come back. All these images and feelings you tried so hard to attract and hold on to are now slipping away like sand through your fingers. And this process of leaving is the most painful, because what do we really leave behind when we decide to let go of the past? Are they just habits? Or is it a real part of our soul that we have not been able to rewrite? And a letting go of the past does not always give you a feeling of lightness. Moreover, sometimes it feels you're breaking up with yourself. And it turns out that all this time you've been living in a fictional reality because you didn't allow yourself to be free, didn't allow yourself to let go of everything that had already become a burden. And now, when I tried to move forward, I didn't always recognize myself in new situations and new habits. I would look at my reflection and see a stranger, an unfamiliar man. Maybe it was necessary, maybe it was the next stage, but I felt that I still could not completely remove the heavy cover that covered my heart. All those days when I experienced moments of loss and pain mattered. And even if it seemed hopeless at the time, I realized that I was actually going in the right direction. Each new step is like a small victory over my limitations, over my own fears and doubts. I began to feel more alive, more free. An important moment was the transition from despair to hope. I started taking small steps that added up to one big change. And even if these steps seemed insignificant, they gradually changed me, changed my attitude to life. I began to realize that every day is a chance for change, a chance to start something new. But each step required me to fight my own fear and doubts. I needed to dare to make these changes, even if they seemed scary. It was important to step outside my comfort zone, even if it was painful and unknown at first. I realized that true goodbye is not just about parting with someone or something. It's saying goodbye to yourself, to your past. But it's not the end, it's just the beginning of something new. This is the moment when you leave behind everything that no longer serves you and open the door to new opportunities. The letting go of the past is difficult, but it is necessary to be able to move forward. Are these changes painful? Yes, they are. Are they difficult? Absolutely. But each new step opens up opportunities that you could not even imagine before. When we think that everything in our lives is over, when it seems that there is no hope left, a new opportunity can appear at the most unexpected moment, and that's exactly what happened to me. I was ready for everything to end the way it was supposed to end, with pain, with loss, with disappointment. I was going to leave the past behind, relying only on what was left. But life, which is not easy, sometimes gives you a chance, even when you don't expect it. One day, I received a call that changed the way I saw the world. The call was from someone I had known for a long time, but who rarely appeared in my life. She offered me something I could never have imagined. A new opportunity, a new chance, a new path. Starting from scratch is always scary. The question is, can I do it? Is it worth trying? Will it be another disappointment? And yet I deciding I'm not going to leave this door closed. I will move forward, even if fear stands in my way. After that call, I started planning my next move. The opportunity I was offered was not only professional, but also personal. It was an opportunity to correct my mistakes, to try again, but with new strength and new experience. I could feel the hope I thought I had lost long ago waking up inside me. I began to realize that every new opportunity is a chance to change everything. And even if the past has left its mark on my life, I no longer want to stay in the shadow of my fears. I will move forward, even if it is not easy. When I opened a new opportunity, I knew that I would face not only success but also many new challenges. Every path has its obstacles. And although I had already decided to move forward, I had to consider all the risks that accompany this step. What do I really gain? What could I lose? These questions kept running through my mind again and again. But I realized that risks are a part of life. And not to try means to leave a chance for myself, as well as to leave a chance for the future, which can be better than what I have already experienced. This was important because every step on the new path required determination, and I knew that these changes could lead to both gains and new losses. But at the same time, I felt that this would be a chance for me to be who I wanted to be, without regard to the past. The most difficult thing about new opportunities is finding the courage to change your reality. The steps I took seemed small at first, but gradually I began to feel that I was being led by something bigger. It was not just a job or a project. It was a chance to rebuild myself, to find my strength and confidence that I could do more than I thought. And although every day brought new challenges, I began to feel my heart opening up to new possibilities. It was a moment of transition. The new opportunity was not only an external change, but also an internal awakening. I was drawn to try new things, to open new horizons. I was no longer afraid of losing everything again, even though I was ready to take risks, even if I was facing an even greater challenge. And although the path was difficult, I could already see how it was leading to the changes I had been looking for all along. Life does not stand still. And if we think that as we get older, we shouldn't pay attention to new trends, we are wrong. Every day brings new opportunities, new rules of the game. And despite the fact that we are no longer so young to grab hold of everything new, we still have to change. Time dictates its own terms, and it is up to us to keep up with it or stay behind. It's been a long time since I decided to take a step into a new life. And now I have realized that my path is connected not only with new opportunities, but also with how life itself is changing around me. Trends, fashions, technologies, all of these have become an important part of my everyday life. Technological progress does not stand still. If a few years ago, a smartphone was just a means of communication for me, now it is a whole world of opportunities. The internet, social networks, new technologies, I began to realize that it is impossible to stay afloat without them. Although I was skeptical at first, it has now become part of my reality. Today, all these technologies are not just a fashion trend, but a real necessity. Connecting to social networks, using mobile apps to buy groceries or even make medical appointments has become a daily routine for me. I began to feel how many opportunities open up when you are not afraid to learn new things, even if it seems difficult. The new generation, which has been learning everything since childhood, may not realize how difficult it is to adapt to such rapid changes. But the older we get, the more we start to appreciate being connected to the modern world, even if it means going through some difficulties. Changing is not always easy. It is important not only to accept new trends, but also to find a balance between what is close and important to you and what the modern world brings. I began to notice that I was appreciating the little joys more and more, meeting friends, talking on the phone without rushing, spending long evenings with a book. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore what was happening around me. And I realized that modern life is not only about speed and technology, but also about the search for harmony. I started looking for new ways to be present in a world where everything is changing so fast. The feeling that I can influence it, even in my old age, became important to me. This balance between the modern world and my own beliefs has become the bridge that connects me to new opportunities without losing what is important and valuable to me. Modern trends dictate not only our lifestyle, but also our mentality. And they shape our habits, views, and even the way we feel about the world. Fashion trends, digital tools for work and communication, popular cultural phenomena, all of these leave their mark on each of us. Young people who are now actively interacting with digital platforms cannot imagine life without them. They are used to being online, to having access to the whole world right in their pocket. There are no restrictions for them, and this changes the whole dynamic of life. For me, as an older person, it was a challenge, but I realized that you can't stay still. I need to follow new trends, even if they can sometimes scare me. After all, these changes make it possible to open new horizons and look at the world from a different angle. Time is the most valuable resource. We can't get it back, and that's why it's important to use it to our advantage. And if new trends are not only becoming a part of life, but also helping you grow, why not make the most of them? Technology, online courses, travel, communication with people from different parts of the world, all this not only allows us to stay in trend, but also expands our horizons. I began to feel that the time spent on new opportunities is not wasted. On the contrary, this is the moment when you can find new ways of development even in old age. And after everything I had been through, it seemed like I had found my balance again. The return to new trends, the acceptance of the modern world, all this began to bring a sense of stability to my life. But life often does not allow us to live in peace for long. From time to time, there are moments when we feel vulnerable again, and this moment happened. The fear returned quietly, unnoticed, as if it had never left. It was not the fear I had felt before. It was a different kind of anxiety, insidious, invisible, but so powerful that it was felt in every cell of my body. It was as if I had fallen back into that old circle of hopelessness, where every step seemed like a mistake and every thought a heavy burden. And even I thought I had survived it all. I suddenly realized how thin the line between peace and fear is. Fear is a strange thing. It can sneak up on you at the most unexpected moment, even when everything seems to be going well. And if I used to be afraid of the uncertainty of the future, now fear has started to come from other places. Unexpected changes, new challenges, even relationships with people, all of this can be the reason why I feel that terrible tightness in my chest again. Sometimes I notice how circumstances are getting harder. And even though I try to find peace in all this, the fear takes over again. It regains control like a shadow that fills everything around me again. Of fear of aging, of loss, of not being able to cope with something new. All of this has started to impose its rules again. But the worst part was that I wasn't always able to recognize when it was happening. It was like a veiled fear that wrapped around my heart and tried to squeeze me back into a limited existence. The past has this strange ability to come back. All those old memories that once seemed far behind can reappear like ghosts. And even I thought I had already let go of what was once difficult and painful, I suddenly feel all the things I tried to forget are starting to gain strength. All these fears about finances, efforts that don't always bring results, people who can betray or leave you, they come back again and again. It's like a memory of a storm that never ended. I began to realize that this fear is not just a reaction to external factors. It's an internal struggle going on inside of me. It's a struggle between living in the here and now and what has tormented me in the past. And the more I try to fight, the more it manifests itself. The more I try to overcome this fear, the more it seems insidious. After all, fear is not just a feeling, it is a whole emotional trap. It creeps into your thoughts, makes you doubt every decision, even those that have already been made. And the harder you fight it, the more helpless it seems. But I began to realize one important thing: fear cannot be defeated by force or escape. It will always find a way back. And the only way to get rid of it is to face it without fear. It is to accept that it is there and to understand that even if it is present, it will not be able to control my life unless I let it. I never thought that learning to accept fear would be so difficult. After all, it's not about disappearing from it. It's about not letting it destroy your life. And although it's hard, I've begun to realize that accepting fear is the first step to freeing myself from it. Living with it means allowing yourself to feel anxiety, but not giving in to it. It means feeling it, but not letting it control your life. I started practicing this approach, facing my fear without trying to run away from it, and not letting it influence my decisions. It is impossible to imagine that in one moment everything you have achieved can collapse. If we all try to create a certain path, to build our future on the basis of past experience, but as it turns out, life does not always give us an exact route. And so I was faced with the same choice, whether to continue following the paths I had already found or to go into a new, unknown world full of uncertainty. This moment was special, and when all of my previous decisions were just preparations for this one decision that would decide what my future would look like. I felt that the time had come. But was I really ready for this choice? The answer to this question was much more complicated than I had imagined. It seems that every choice we make brings with it not only new opportunities, but also new fears. And although I was once again facing the possibility of change, this choice was not so simple. It was a choice between staying in my comfort zone, where everything was familiar, and stepping into a completely new world full of potential, but also falls. I was scared of the uncertainty that arose before every possible step. I realized that this choice would not only change my path, but also determine my ability to overcome difficulties. It was like opening a new chapter in a book, where I didn't know what awaited me on the next pages. And yes, I felt fear again. But this fear was different. It didn't hold me captive. It only reminded me that I was on the verge of an important change. Each of us, one way or another, faces a choice between freedom and security every day. The choice I had to make now was exactly that. What is more important, to stay in comfort, where everything is clear and stable, or to take a chance and step on a new path that may be full of unknowns? I've always been attracted to freedom, the ability to live my life the way I want without regard to restrictions or rules. But freedom was not a safe option. It brought with it the need to make decisions, act without guarantees, and look for your own answers in a world where no one gives clear instructions. On the other hand, security, of course, gave me peace of mind, but at the same time, it limited my options. Am I ready to give up this security? Am I ready to face all the unpredictable moments openly? This was the question I asked myself over and over again. And then I realized that in order to move forward, I needed to take this first step. The choice will not be easy, but it will be mine. I realized that everything that had happened up to that point was just a preparation for me to finally break free of the framework in which I had been living. My freedom was to allow myself to go into the unknown. I felt that, despite all the fear and uncertainty, this was my moment. I was ready to abandon old beliefs, stereotypes that held me back, and, most importantly, the comfort zone in which I was hiding. And now I realized that this choice did not just mean the end of an old chapter, it was an opportunity to start a new one. All my fears, doubts, and limitations were behind me, and now I was facing an open path. What would the future hold for me? Would it be success or would I face new challenges? Now, it all depended on whether I could move forward despite these questions. Maybe I didn't have all the answers, but it didn't matter, and I was ready to go without knowing everything. I realized that life is a process, not an end goal, and the choices I made opened up new opportunities for me. Every choice we make shapes our future. We can never know exactly where it will lead us, but all we can do is choose without regret, without doubt, and with the belief that it is the right thing to do. Now my future was open, and I had the opportunity to create it the way I wanted.